you wait for us to stop talking, you won't get any wine past your lips. So feel free to go ahead and start enjoying. We're going to introduce ourselves first. My name is Heather Mackin. I can be found at the Dripping Springs HEB, and I've been with the company for about 2.5 years now. Before that, I was a sommelier at Coleman Cellars in Stonewall, Texas. I'm sure some of you have been there. We do really fun food and wine educational tastings. Before that, I was helping to manage the tasting room at Wimberley Valley Winery. And as so many of us do, I just kind of fell into the beverage industry. I was a flight attendant at the time, and I was getting a little tired of it. I wanted my feet on the ground a little bit more. So I started working part-time in a tasting room and just absolutely fell in love. So from there, I started studying and taking some certifications. I have my intro to the Court of Master Sommeliers. I am a level 3 with the Wine and Spirit Education Trust, and I am a certified specialist of Texas wine. So total wine geek for sure. And I love working for HEB. One of my favorite parts, honestly, is interacting with you all. You guys buy some really fun stuff, and we love engaging with you. So on that note, I will pass it on over to Dina.
Hi. So I've been with HEB for 22, well, going on 22 years. I was originally a server and a bartender, but I wasn't seeing my kid very much once she started elementary school. So I decided to go to HEB part-time, and just for a little while, just, get into that schedule. But yeah, I've worked every department in the store, within a store, except for the front. I've never been a cashier. But yeah, beer and wine, that department's got my heart. It's pretty cool. It's lots of fun. I'm not getting home at 5 o'clock in the morning anymore. It's a good time. So I was also the second woman hired for the position. It was when they were just starting to create it. And actually, Suzanne Schreiner is one of the participants tonight. She was actually the first one in Central Texas, if not the first one ever. I'm not sure if that's correct or not. But Suzanne, if you help me out here.
I don't know if I'm allowed to, but yeah, I don't know. There might have been some Central Market ladies, but yeah, thanks for the shout out. I'm so excited, you guys.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here.
Way to represent.
I was excited when you signed up. But yeah, so we've seen it from the very beginning, and it's grown a ton. It's not just me and a couple of people sitting at a table going, hey, what do you want to do this month? So it's a good time. We've also got a handful of other wine managers on. I know that Chris is on here, Chris Hurst, and Ashton, and Karen is here with us also. She's part of the corporate world. And I think Kristen is on here also. Is that right? But yeah,
I'm on.
Okay. Yay! Hi. I was right. But yeah, we've got some cool people in here. So you want to dive into the wines?
Yeah, so the tasting order, we will be doing the Pinot Grigio, Bordeaux Blanc, the Rosé Spritzer, the Merlot, and then we'll finish up with the Cab. We'll just go ahead and jump right in. So we have our 2019 San Angelo Banfi Pinot Grigio, sorry. And we have 100% Pinot Grigio in our glass right now. We'll go ahead and give it a swirl. I know we have a ton of wine aficionados in here, but I know we do have some newbies to wine as well. I'm going to call out my mom right now. Hi, Mom. So I will be touching on some of the basics, but don't worry, we'll get into the nitty gritty as well. But when we swirl our wine, we aren't just looking fancy. We're getting those compounds really kind of riled up and moving around and traveling up the glass, getting some nice aromatics, and it's going to really help open up the wine and kind of tell us about itself. So these grapes were sourced from the Montalcino region of Tuscany. So that's going to be the southern part of Tuscany. Typically, when you think of Italian Pinot Grigio, your mind might travel up to the northeast. Lots of wines coming from the Veneto and Alto Adige region, where it's a little bit cooler. It's a little bit warmer in the Tuscan area, but they have this wonderful benefit on the estate vineyard of having these calcareous soils. And what that does is it helps really promote the retention of acidity in the grape. And you're going to get this nice backbone of acidity with this wine. It's very bright and fresh, and that's what we want in our Pinot Grigio. So swirling it, Well, first of all, the color of this wine, it's very, very pale. It's almost like this white gold, this platinum. It looks very fresh. The aromatics, we're definitely getting like this white peach. It's kind of like fresh pear, a little bit of a honeyed character. Definitely some floral elements, maybe some jasmine. Again, just very, very fresh smelling. And another thing about the vineyard site, Dina's gonna tell us something really cool that we learned. Dina?
It's my favorite story. So I was talking to Elizabeth Beulah. She actually works with Bamfi. I was trying to get some specifics from her, and she told me that when they were turning the soil to get it ready to plant, they found a whale. It's what, 5 meters, so that's like 16 feet, I think. But yeah, they found a skeleton of a whale. Her name's Beulah, right? Is that right, Elizabeth?
Brunella.
Is it Brunella?
It's Brunella.
Oh, Brunella. Sorry.
Oh, Beulah's my last name. Oh, right.
I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I got really excited about that. But yeah, there's also a castle on site. It's the Bambi Castle. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So we are, first and foremost, we're family owned and operated. We're our 3rd generation. So our 2nd generation went into Montalcino. And in doing so, we bought our acreage. So we have 7,100 acres of land. We only have 21 under vine, which is smaller than most first growth Bordeaux. But as we started our operations, we bought parcels at a time. And our last parcel was the parcel with the castle on it. So it does date back to Count Placido, back when Siena was fighting Florence, right? So 1800s. But when John decided to purchase this piece of land, the patriarch had passed away and the matriarch was still living in the castle. So what we did was we built her a house on property overlooking the castle and also his burial site. So he's buried on property at our little chapel. But it's really, really quite cool. There's only been 3 families that have owned it. And Pam and John, who John is our president emeritus, his daughter Christina is currently president and CEO running the company. He and Pam actually live on property when they're in Italy. So it's really cool. It's all very family oriented. Very much so historical. They like to make sure that they preserve history. So we have a glass museum on property as well. And then on the other side, we also have a hotel. It's called Il Borgo. It is only 12 rooms and it is a 5-star resort. So it's really, really beautiful. If you guys have the chance to go out to Italy, please stop by Castello Bonfi. We would love to host you.
Thanks. Heather, you want to start with the...
Oh yeah, okay, so let's actually taste the wine now, or hopefully you already have. We'll get to the fun part. So you get a lot of those notes that we already got with the aromatics kind of confirmed on the palate. That kind of peach and like nice pear note. The mouth is watering, so you're getting that nice hit of acidity that we were talking about. It's almost this like lemon peel finished, nice citrus to it, kind of candied lemon, if you will. It's a nice lingering finish. I mean, it's hanging on and it's just super, super fresh, I think. You can do a lot of really fun food pairings for this. Obviously, I'm thinking spring and summer dishes like pasta primavera, angel hair pasta, grilled veggies. Obviously, seafood is a classic choice for Pinot Grigio. It won't overwhelm like a light grilled fish or shellfish, but I would also venture towards the fish and chips area of seafood. I think the bright wine and acidity will really kind of cut through some of that fat of the fish and chips. And it's also quite salty fare, and salt and acid work really, really well together. That saltiness kind of dries your palate, and the acidity kind of brings in this cleansing, refreshing action. So that would be really fun. Also a white pizza with ricotta. I mean, possibilities are endless, really. So you can have a lot of fun pairing with this wine, or just drink it as is on a hot Texas day for sure.
Heather, we just had a comment from Dan that he's eating it with a Reuben and was surprised to see how much he's enjoying that. And I think that the saltiness probably really kind of offsets that sort of sweet fruity flavor from the Pinot Grigio. So I'm kind of intrigued by that myself.
Yeah, great point. I always love finding kind of quirky pairings that you weren't expecting. I think those are the most fun for sure. And I think Dina's going to talk to us about the lovely Christina.
Yes. So I should set a timer because I can go on and on and on and on about this chick. So her name's Christina Mariana May. She's an athlete. She's the CEO. She's a mom. She's third generation Bamfi. She does, so her and one of the main guys at HEB, David Duran, they've actually got a really close friendship as well as a business relationship. They're actually in a commercial for us from a couple of years ago. They actually filmed it at the castle, and he stayed for about a week to take care of all of that. They became really good friends, and now we do a lot of work with them. They do a lot of our what used to be primo picks, now it's our wine favorites. So they bring us some great stuff. But yeah, she does a lot of their environmental and social stuff. They created some tanks that are pretty cool.
Yeah, she's really known for her innovation. Sorry to interrupt, Dina, but they actually came up with these like composite fermenters. They're hybrid tanks, and what they are, they're part wood, part stainless steel. So you kind of get the best of both worlds during fermentation. It's about 2/3 wood, and then it has a third steel at the base and at the top of the tank. And so the wood really allows for this aeration, and the stainless steel is known for its ease of use and also temperature control, which is really important in fermentation. So the innovation that she's brought to Banfi is just really cool.
You want to go on the next one?
Okay, sure. Yeah, if there aren't any more questions about the Pinot Grigio, we can move on to wine number 2. So here we have the 2019 Lejeune Bordeaux Blanc. This one's going to retail for about $14.98. And we have a classic Bordeaux Blanc here made up of Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon. We have about 85% Sauvignon Blanc to the 15% Semillon. Normally when you think of Bordeaux, of course, we're thinking about red wines. Only 15% of the wines that are coming out of Bordeaux are going to be white, but they make some really lovely styles. This one, again, is going to be a very classic blend. Some of the other permitted grape varietals that you may find in your Bordeaux Blancs include Muscadel, Uni Blanc, Merlot Blanc, Sauvignon Gris, and Colombard, I believe. But typically, again, you're going to see these top 2. Let's go ahead and give it a nice swirl. And right on the nose, you can definitely pick out that classic Sauvignon Blanc with that bit of green note, a little bit of a grassy style and citrus, but it's not quite as intense as you would find with a lot of New Zealand styles. And the Semillon is going to lend kind of like a honeyed quality to it, and we'll also pick up some of that on the palate as well. These grapes were sourced from the Entre-deux-Mers region, that is between the Dordogne and Garonne rivers. Entre-deux-Mers literally means between 2 seas. And the Lejeune brand is actually operated by the very famous and prestigious Domaine Baron de Rothschild. Obviously, they're known for their outrageous and historical, amazing first growth Bordeaux's, but they really wanted to introduce a line that is accessible for the everyday wine drinker, because yes, wine should be drank every day. And so this is really a great accessible line for people to get to know Bordeaux. So these wines are meant to be approachable, kind of everyday styles, but they still want to remain very authentic to the style of Bordeaux. And there are actually 5 different wines in this line. Obviously, we have the white Bordeaux. They also do a Bordeaux Rouge, which you can find at most HEBs, also priced at $14.98. And then they have 3 single region reds, Medoc, Pauillac, and Saint-Emilion, if you're interested in those. We have this really light straw color, and for aromatics, we're getting some beautiful kind of citrus and lychee. And you get some nice minerality there as well. These old world wines, you definitely want to get a hint of the terroir, so you get a little bit of this crushed rock quality to it as well. And now I will hand it over to Dina. We are going to talk about the amazing winemaker, Diane Clement.
Yeah, so she is all about wine. She she's been with Legend for about 15 years. She's been there since 2004. She worked a harvest one year and then just decided that that was it. That was for her. So she went to school. She went to the Oenology School of Bordeaux in 1980. She graduated in 1987, and then she got her master's in spirit and wine trade. So in Burgundy. She's been with the winery in different positions. So she still understands that in her opinion, it's still mostly a man's world out there. So she's got a lot of advice for people that come to her when they ask, just to be patient and determined and passionate about it all. But yeah, she's pretty great.
Yeah, she definitely, again, wants to maintain a nice authenticity to these wines, even though they are meant to be a little bit more just kind of fun and approachable and everyday. She really finds the blending process to be where their artistry is at. I hear so many winemakers say that they enjoy the science of, the vinification, but the blending process is really where they get to be creative and show their artistry. And this Bordeaux Blanc is actually her favorite out of the entire line of the Legend brand. She serves it as an aperitif all the time with her friends. We can go ahead and taste it. And obviously we have a little bit more weight here than we did with the Pinot Grigio, but it's still this nice, smooth, medium-bodied style. The Sauvignon Blanc is really lending, again, those really bright, fresh characteristics, grapefruit and tropical fruit, lime and citrus. And then the Semillon is known as the somewhat hardier grape varietal when made into wine. So that's adding a little bit of weight to the wine and that kind of honeyed characteristic as well. We do have some lees aging for this wine. Again, if you're a newbie, obviously we need to add yeast to our juice to create fermentation. And those spent yeast cells can either remain with the juice or be filtered out. And if it remains with the wine, it actually is going to lend this kind of creaminess. So you really get that on the mouthfeel. It's that kind of slight lees aging that they employed. And food pairings for this wine. Obviously we can keep it very traditional and go with like a nice roast chicken or anything in a beurre blanc sauce, but I really like to kind of challenge that and think more international. I could totally see this with Asian food or like really flavorful sushi rolls. I'm also thinking Mexican food. Obviously here in Texas, we love Tex-Mex. I would totally pair this with chicken verde enchiladas or something like that. So you can have a lot of fun with the pairings. I don't know about you, Dina. What would you drink this with?
A pool.
Yeah. That as well, for sure. So what do you all think of the Bordeaux Blanc?
It looks like it's a favorite.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of good feedback that everyone wants to basically drink this outside on a patio. And a lot of people want to pair something spicy with it. So
totally. Yeah, something super flavorful and vibrant would work really, really well.
They're crab legs.
All right, should we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
So wine number 3 is going to be the non-vintage Chican Island Citrus Dry Rosé Spritzer. So I think all of us seen the influx of canned wines and seltzers and spritzers that's going on right now. I mean, so many are popping up for a reason. They're selling and people love it. The convenient package is great, especially for people in Austin and Central Texas. We like to be on the move and we like our booze with us there along the way. So by the pool, kayaking, picnics, hiking, this is kind of the perfect wine to kind of tag along with you here. And this retails for $6.99. There actually are two different flavors. Besides the citrus or the island citrus, there's also a coastal berry. And one of the things that I love about this wine in particular is that the base of the wine is actually their rosé that they sell in bottle, the McBride sisters. So this isn't miscellaneous bulk juice. It is the exact rosé that you will find in their very tasty bottled wines. So I loved that. And of course, they add just a little bit of spritz to keep it really light and fun. We have a really beautiful kind of like dusty rose color. And definitely very aromatic on the nose. Lots of grapefruit, guava, a little bit of a melon note to it as well.
I like the way this smells.
Yeah, I think it's really pretty and fun. You definitely see the spritz there. It's going to be very bright and fresh. And we'll get to some fun food pairings, but really one of the best things about this wine is the story of the McBride sisters. So Dina will kick that off.
It's pretty interesting. So they didn't grow up together. One grew up in Monterey, California. One of them grew up in New Zealand, and they shared a father, different moms. Then their dad was on his deathbed, and he asked for his last wish to actually for his family members to find them and bring them to him. They were able to find Robin. They weren't able to find Andrea in time, but yeah, that was how they met. They didn't know about each other. They didn't, they had no idea that they were sisters. But they met in California. They started talking. They realized that they both had this really big, passionate feeling for wine. They started a distribution, and they started importing New Zealand wines into California, which is pretty cool. And then they decided to start getting into winemaking. But yeah, they do a lot of charitable work for small women businesses. They have, I'm sorry, I'm still looking at my notes.
Do you want me to talk about the She Can Professional Development Fund? Because that's another one of my favorite parts about this company in particular is they really practice what they preach. So they developed the She Can Professional Development Fund in 2019. And its whole purpose, which their whole operations purpose, is basically to close the gender and race gap. So in their very first year alone, they awarded $40,000 in scholarships to empower and create opportunities for women. After that, they really kind of gained some major sponsors. And so they were able to take that even a step further. Obviously, in 2020, the pandemic hits and it affects us all, but it especially affects small business owners, and it affects Black-owned small business owners the most. It's kind of a crazy statistic, but about 41% of Black-owned small businesses actually shuttered their doors by mid-April. So the McBride sisters, Robin and Andrea, really wanted to do something about that. They were actually able to distribute $300,000 in grants, and they expanded their reach to not only include those in the wine industry, but to include all Black women-owned businesses. So I have no problem giving them my money. I love when you can support causes like this. So again, really, really awesome, the work that they do there.
Yeah, and it helps that the wine's delicious.
I was gonna say, win-win.
And I think Kristen brought up a great point that these can sneak up on you because a can is equal to a half a bottle of wine, which I think you don't always think about, when you're lounging around the pool. And I mean, this is the reason, and I'm going to embarrass myself here, but this is the reason in the summer, I'll pour some sparkling water into my wine, because if I'm going to sit out by the pool for 3 hours, I'm going to have a spritzer. Otherwise, forget it. So that's a really good point when you're drinking these cans, is that, I'm sure it will sneak up on you.
Absolutely. And no judgment for me. Drink your wine however you want, honestly.
Not normally, but just, when it's 98 degrees out and I'm in the pool for 3 hours, there's no way I can just, I'll be done for.
No, absolutely. And this spritzer is actually 8% ABV, so it is very crushable, but yeah, it absolutely equates to a half bottle of wine. That's great to keep in mind. Besides being women owners, they have two really fantastic women winemakers. So again, they do have origins in New Zealand and California. They have a winemaker in each. Did you want to talk about them, Dina? Or
Yeah. So they've got Amy Butler in California and Diane Hawkins in New Zealand. They both got a pretty good background also. They're both foodies to begin with, and then they went into school. I want to say one of them worked for you or went to UC Davis. Amy Butler did, because if you're in California, you go to UC Davis. And girl Diane Hawkins in New Zealand, she was actually a certified somm that worked for some really big award-winning restaurants. One's a James Beard Award, and the other one's a 3-star Michelin. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, they both work to make pretty good wines. Diana Hawkins wrote an article about, once again, being in a man's world and how it affected her. And that changed a lot of minds for a lot of people. It is called How Microaggressions in the Snowman Winery Made a Black Winemaker Question Her Profession. So she actually almost left and wrote this article and decided, I'm going to stay. Let's see how this goes. So she turned a lot of heads. It was pretty
I was
neat.
gonna say not only stay, but also start changing some things. So she's
Yeah.
a pretty awesome lady.
You know, on that note, I do want to mention, it's so great to hear that companies are doing this and recognizing the challenges and the issues with regard to gender in the industry. And there's a great conference coming up for next week for those in the industry, and I'm assuming a lot of people are already attending. The Lift Collective conference is all about diversity, equity, and inclusion, not just gender, across the board. And it's a great group of people putting it on. And so if you don't know about it, I definitely check it out. Lift Collective.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm so glad you mentioned that for sure. What are we thinking about this wine on the palate? I'll go ahead and say it. I was surprised that it was just nice and dry and very fresh. Again, that spritz really kind of gives it some lift. And we get these really beautiful kind of like guava notes, kiwi, little bit of like lime zest on the finish. It's very flavorful, very easy drinking, and it's nice and dry. It's fruity, but it's still nice and dry. So very crisp style. And as mentioned before, this is absolutely the wine to drink by the pool or to take along with a picnic. I would drink this wine with brunch all morning long, afternoon long, definitely a brunch wine. But besides just being kind of convenient, you can really do some elegant pairings with this as well. I'm thinking shrimp cocktail, a watermelon caprese would be really lovely with this. I would drink this with ceviche, fish tacos. You can really do some elegant pairings as well. So don't think of it as just a grab and go. Although it works perfectly for that, it definitely can stand up to some food as well. What do we think?
We just got a comment about the fizziness. I think that's always fun to have in a canned wine and in a good summer rosé, is just a light fizz.
Totally, not too heavy. This is perfect drinking for the 100-degree weather that's going to hit us eventually. All right, should we jump into some reds now?
Yes, absolutely.
So wine number 4, we have the 2018 Oberon Napa Valley Merlot. So this one, obviously we are in Napa now. This is going to be the Oakville district in particular. 2018 was kind of an ideal growing season, which was very welcomed after the very tumultuous 2017 vintage. We do have some minor blending grapes in here. The majority is Merlot at 87%, but we also have 10% Syrah and 1.4% Zinfandel. It's totally normal to have some minor blending grapes in the single varietal wine just to kind of create a consistency and really get the wine that we're looking for. And we have this nice kind of dark ruby. This wine did see French oak, about 45% new French oak. Let's go ahead and give it some swirls and some smells. And definitely get some lovely aromatics here. You get that kind of dark fruit, blue fruit, and a little bit of smokiness.
It almost has some like old world smell to it too.
Totally. It has some nice kind of like earthiness.
Yeah.
Yeah, so typically New World versus Old World. New World, we see a lot of like bold fruit right off the bat. And sometimes the layers behind that are just kind of like covered up, not always obviously, but Old World really gets this hit of like kind of earthiness and those tertiary characteristics. And sometimes the fruit is a little bit less in your face, if you will. So it's fun to see all those layers in the wine for sure. But the lovely Dina Mondavi is the fantastic female behind this one. Obviously, we are all familiar with the Mondavi family and their contributions to Napa in particular. And she is actually co-owner of the Oberon winery, and Dina is going to talk a little bit about her.
Yeah, so first of all, the name, amazing. Just kidding. So Oberon is actually owned by one of the Mondavi families, by Michael Mondavi. She's one of the co-owners. She actually went to school for art history and studio art, and she minored in Italian literature, but she stayed within the family business to help them out. She is one of the top people for the blending in a lot of the wines, and a lot of their higher end wines. She also pretty responsible for the sales aspect on the company. She's helped out a lot with that, and a lot of philanthropic efforts have gone. She's headed a lot of those as well. So she's done some pretty cool work, and it's all within the family. So that's kind of cool.
I just want to say Dina is awesome. She comes to the market. She hasn't been to the market, of course, because of COVID, but she also had a baby recently. But when she gets back in the field, she is, when you talk about a female leader, like she is just super cool. She'll tell you everything too. Like she will be like, she'll spill all the family drama, like all the history, all the cool stuff. Like, but she really is like that empowered, woman, businesswoman, like you said. I think Dina, she's responsible for a lot of the sales aspect and does do some of the traveling as well in the market. But she's a really cool lady. Like I've super enjoyed my time to spend with her. So definitely somebody to watch out for when she finally does come back. No promises. I don't know her schedule like that, but she's really cool. And it's cool to see a co-owner like that in such a strong male-driven family. That you always think about Robert and then Rob Jr., who is the winemaker, and then Tim on the other side of the family. But she really stands out. So I love celebrating her. Thank you for doing that.
We've got a good question here. Where did the name Oberon come from? Is it a Shakespearean reference?
It absolutely is, and it's like totally escaping me right now. Is it one of the fairies or top fairies or something? Oh gosh, if anyone knows, please buzz in.
It is one of the fairies. Yeah, okay. It is one of the fairies. In what's it called? Midsummer Night Dream. I'm like, why is that escaping me? Yeah, one of the fairies in Midsummer Night. And I don't know where the name comes from, why they chose that name, but I like it.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Definitely worth investigating. So apologies that I don't have that swift answer for you. But good call out.
Yeah, and I agree with what Chris Hurst just said, that it's one of his favorite varietals, and nice to see it on the rise again, which I think, like everyone after Sideways, everyone was afraid to drink Merlot. So it really has kind of made a strong comeback, and it's definitely one of my favorite varietals for sure.
Absolutely. I feel like, sorry.
Good point.
Okay. I was just gonna say it's one of my favorites out of the lineup that we've got.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a beautiful wine, and it's a beautiful grape varietal. I feel like if people just flat out don't like Merlot, I mean, you're free to like and dislike what you want. But there They sometimes get the rap of having this overblown fruit, or it's too soft or plush or too jammy, when really you can get these beautifully structured wines. So I think maybe they just haven't found the right Merlot yet. But this one definitely has that nice structure. It's this nice medium body, nice acidity to it, really holds itself up well. I definitely get those black fruits, blackberry, a little bit of a pepper note, that kind of earthiness is still there, and some bitter chocolate as well. This wine also saw French oak, about 45% new. I don't know if I had mentioned that already. And you can definitely have some really successful pairings with this. Immediately, I'm thinking Texas barbecue. This would be great with some ribs. Anything kind of smoked meats would be really, really lovely. Lamb shank, pork loin, obviously, all those tasty, big protein meals are great with it. But obviously we love cheese with our wine. I think a sharp cheddar would be a lovely contrast pairing for this. You have the sharpness of that cheese, kind of contrasting the bold fruit of the wine, and then a nice congruent pairing would be like a smoked Gouda, matching the smokiness of the wine as well. So not all about the meat, we love our meat, but some lovely cheese pairing ideas also.
When we were tasting through these wines, the first thing I thought was a Brazilian steakhouse. You know, they walk around with all those skewers of meat. Yeah, I could go all day with this.
You also mentioned the brisket burger at Loro.
Ooh, yeah, if y'all have ever gone to Loro, they've got this burger that's the size of my face, and it's beef, and then it's got brisket and pickles and garlic aioli. This would be delicious with it. So somebody hit up Loro and have them put it on their wine list.
Any questions, or want to explore anything else further before we move on to the Cabernet?
Wait, Will, what are you saying? You're tasting bourbon? What are you saying about bourbon?
So yeah, you totally called me out. So Jim was messaging me, and I sent it to everyone instead of just him. He said, "Can you tell if you think people can tell that we moved on to the cab?" And I was making a joke that mine's bourbon. Mine is definitely Merlot.
I was thinking you were saying you were tasting bourbon in this, and I'm like, really? Wow.
Like, that's interesting, Will.
Call me. No.
This did not see any bourbon or whiskey barrels. It did not, no.
You need me to call you out. Go on with your side conversations.
All right, we will move on to the 2016 Freemark Abbey Cabernet Sauvignon. Here we are sticking in Napa Valley, but we're going to take a little tour of Napa in terms of where the fruit is sourced from. It's actually from vineyards from Oakville, Rutherford, Atlas Peak, and Howell Mountain. And again, 2016 vintage. This retails for about $37, I believe.
Mm-hmm. $37.97.
Okay. And we definitely see this very kind of opaque juice, this nice, very, very deep ruby color. This one saw about 35% new French oak. And hopefully you decanted this or opened it up pretty early. If you didn't, I encourage you to save some or pour some and kind of just leave it out for a while, because you'll definitely see how this wine opens up over time. And definitely some ripe raspberry notes. You pick up that oak with a little bit of cedar. Definitely some pepper notes and herb de Provence, which I think is really lovely. And if you're getting this kind of vapor, that's actually the alcohol. It's 14.5, which is totally normal for Napa Valley Cabernet. But if you're feeling that kind of slight hint of a vapor, that's going to be the alcohol or kind of hitting your nostrils. The winemaker for this one is the wonderful Christy Melton. She is actually just handed over the position from last year from Ted Edwards, who I believe was their head winemaker for 35 years. So it's kind of a big deal. And she's also the very first female winemaker to be hired at Freemark Abbey, and Dina's going to talk about her.
Yeah, so she is a Texas girl. She grew up in El Paso and she went to school in San Angelo. Sorry, got my Sands mixed up. And fun fact, she's also a former rodeo queen. So that was pretty cool. She started getting into science and she started going to school for science. And then she was supplementing her income by being a bartender. So she went my way, but we went totally different directions. She was bartending for a while, and that's when she got introduced to wine, and she loved it and decided that that's where she was going to go. She went into viticulture and enology. She went to UC Davis. She's worked for some pretty cool vineyards. She worked for Iron Horse, Saintsbury, Clos de Val. She's the first winemaker everywhere she was, apparently. She was the first at Clos de Val and at Freemark. She's been there for a while, like Heather said, that she just overtook the position from somebody that's been there forever. So that was pretty neat. But yay, Texas.
Yeah, I loved learning that she was a former rodeo queen. You know, she's got some spunk, so that's awesome. We love our Texans. So not only was she the first female winemaker to be hired by Freemark Abbey, but Freemark Abbey was actually founded by one of the first females in Napa, Josephine Tyson, in 1886. She was actually the second woman in Napa to own and operate a winery. The first one was Hannah Weinberger, who opened, I think it's Weinberger Estate, actually, in 1882. So the winery was originally called Tyson Cellars. Obviously, it exchanged hands and was sold a few times. From Tyson Cellars, it became Lombarda. And then we had a trio of wine enthusiasts purchase it, named Charles Freeman, Mark Foster, and Abby Aham, hence the name Freemark Abbey. So that's where the name comes from. On the palate, we're kind of getting this big classic Napa style. You're feeling those tannins, that slight astringency on the palate, but I wouldn't call them like super grippy. I think that they're well integrated and kind of rounded. And just great structure to this. Definitely getting the oak and kind of those pencil shavings you can sometimes associate. Being cherry, boysenberry, kind of cherry chocolate truffle, if you will. Lots and lots of layers to this wine, as we would expect from a top-notch Napa winery. Let's see, food pairings. Would anybody be surprised if I suggested more red meat? We all know that a cab works lovely with a big steak. And there's a reason for that, obviously. It's the tannin and protein to the tannin to the protein and fat ratio. So basically with pairing red wines, you want to make sure that the protein and fat in your dish matches up to the level of tannin in your wine. Here we have, lots of tannin going on. So that's why you want the fat and protein of that big steak or ribeye or short rib. All of those compounds kind of combine on your palate. So if one is off balance, it's going to either overwhelm the wine or the dish. Also, the benefit of serving a higher tannin red with those rich dishes is that tannin and acids are actually kind of whisking the fat off of your palate. It's refreshing it. So when you go back to your meal, it's like you're getting the very first bite over and over again. And that's always the best bite of the meal, is it not? So there's a reason they go so well together. But I definitely want to highlight that you don't always have to pair it with red meat. Again, it's just about that level of fat or richness matching the boldness of the wine. So I would say truffled and herb cheeses would be lovely with this wine to really kind of bring out that kind of herb de Provence and match that. Grilled portobellos with a nice bit of butter or oil on it would also be lovely. Roasted pecans, and definitely a savory cheesecake. I think that would be fantastic with a nice bold tannin red like this. What do we think?
I think they're all delicious.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of comments in the comments box here, but if anyone wants to unmute, tell us what you think. Questions, thoughts? Any cab drinkers have any thoughts?
Fremont Gabby's been one of my favorites for a long time. It's kind of one of those old gods when it comes to Napa cab. I think there's a lot of places that carry it, and for damn good reason. I think it's just one of those great sort of like higher tier, sort of mid to higher tier cabs that just really shows what Napa can do. I've always loved it, so it's good stuff.
Yeah, and just to highlight, I mean, obviously all of these wines are fantastic. You can find them at your HEB, but there are so many female oriented wineries or wines that we carry. I mean, Chandon, Cake Bread, Stoller, Westmount, Bev, Sun Goddess, the list goes on and on. So please come up to us, ask us. We love interacting with you. Like I said, it's one of my favorite things about working for HEB. We really want to kind of like steer you in the direction of these amazing women-owned and women wine-made businesses. And if you're ever having a hard time finding kind of a directory, if you will, Amy Best Cook actually created WOW. It's women-owned wineries, and it's an online directory basically highlighting all of these female identified wine entrepreneurs. And it started with about 50 listings, and now they have actually over 550. And she kind of brought to light some really interesting statistics that since the 90s, men and women have been graduating these viticulture and enology programs in the US in roughly equal numbers, but we're not seeing that represented in the wineries. Not to pick on California real quick, but out of 4,000 wineries, only 4% are women owned and 10% have female lead winemakers. So that's why programs like this are so important, that we really kind of keep talking about it, broaden our scope, engage with as many people as we can to really kind of move the needle on that.
What else? Any other questions, comments, feedback?
Thank you, female leaders of HEB. I'm excited to see y'all. It's, you know, I know several of us on the call, there's enthusiasts, there's people in the industry, but several of us are in the industry as women. And it's just really cool to see y'all come host this tasting. And I thought it was awesome. And I'm excited about the Women's History Month. And yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see, because when I first started in this business, I mean, not even that long ago, but a pretty long time ago, there was just no females at all in the sommelier world. And so it's really cool to have you guys here, and thank you for sharing your knowledge and passion.
When, and I'm going to tell a story that's going to embarrass someone on this. But anyway, when I first started, my husband would join me at wine events, and Suzanne and I would be the only girls. Well, he was basically just the arm candy, but all the salespeople and the wine people, everybody would go to him and be like, "Hey, how are you? Look at our wines." And he's like, "I don't drink it." And I could walk away and just enjoy myself and try them by myself. So he could talk to Albed. So, I mean, that part was great. But yeah, so when we were researching this, I got the information from Will. Once again, me and Suzanne started, and it was just us and a couple of other girls. And now we're over half of the wine managers for Central Texas, at least. I'm not sure about the entire company. I never got that number, but it was pretty cool to see that now we're the majority.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
It's great.
Really great to see. I mean,
Not to play favorites.
Sorry, go ahead, Joelle.
Well, not to play favorites, but you know, because it's Women's History Month, we'll play favorites with women. Apparently, women do have like a higher percentage of women are super tasters, so they actually have like a higher concentration of taste buds on their tongue, and so you see and whatnot. So it makes perfect sense that y'all would end up being the majority. You've got the palate.
I totally agree.
All right. Well, that that might be my last sip takeaway. So if anyone was going to use it, it's mine. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's great to see such progress. Obviously, it's been a crazy year for the industry in so many ways, and it's just really great to see so much support. And as a few people mentioned here, so much support, not just women supporting women, but everyone supporting women in this industry. And I think we're going to see a lot more progress in the industry across the board as we go along. So it's great to see that this has been one of our largest classes so far in 2021, that everyone's here for it. So we're really grateful for everyone who came, and of course Heather and Dina and everyone at HEB for making this happen.
Thank
Yeah,
you
it was
for
an
having
absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Great. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I'd love to go into our last sip before we close out tonight, and ask everyone to think about their biggest takeaways. And again, it can be anything. And I'll start with that one that we just talked about, and one other one that I came away with, because I always like to bring up kind of the weird, quirky ones, is that, Dina, how is it possible you've been with HEB for 22 years when you look maybe like 22? Like, I don't know.
I love when people say that. It's because I started when I was 5.
I mean, how could you not have? I don't understand. So I'm just going to assume that was the case. Somehow you started when you were 5.
I'm actually 48.
Well, that kind of blew me away.
You're my now my new favorite. We're gonna be best friends.
Good. Well, come back, please. Come back. We would love to have more of you. Okay.
And Denise,
Yes.
to kind of to sum up for my last sip here, right?
Great.
So Dina says 22 years. I think it was probably 25. I might have a couple years on her, but in terms of time, I feel like it's been a lifetime. But when you think how far women have come in the 25 years, it's still not fast enough. And it's been coming so exponentially. And I'm so excited. My 12-year-old daughter asked me, she was like, wait, you were one of the first women. And I don't think to tell her that. So excited that you guys are here. Thank you to the guys that were supporting, because that is amazing. That is what will keep us up. That is my last sip. I wish I was drinking with you guys.
Oh, we wish you were drinking too, but that was a great last sip. Thank you, Suzanne.
So Mandy and I were just talking. So the woman connection is fantastic, but you still have to make great wines, and the quality of the wines for the price point were just outstanding. So that's our takeaway, that you still have to make good wines, right? I don't want to drink a bad wine, even though it's from a woman, right? You want to make good wines, and the value on these wines were terrific.
Yeah, I so agree. That white Bordeaux, I was so curious about that one, and a little nervous when I saw the price point. And like Tanya said, that's going to be my new go-to. I mean, that is just, and I will not pour sparkling water into it. Not that one, I promise. Okay, what else? Who else has a last sip? I don't want to put anyone on the spot.
Hi, so I'm Ashley Taylor, and I think I'm the youngest wine steward in Central Texas right now, but I just want to say it's really cool to have people like Dina and like other like winemakers and stuff that are like my role models to look up to in this industry as a woman, because I just think it's great.
Aw, you're the sweetest.
I love you.
I love you.
Who else has the last sip? Joelle, Tanya, Jim, I know you've got something to say.
So I'll just chime in. I just want to, this is Karen. I just want to thank Dina and Heather. My last sip was just so being so incredibly proud of them for taking this chance and for connecting with the Wine and Food Foundation, and just grateful for everyone for kind of embracing this kind of new focus at HEB. It's a new thing we're trying here with Women's History Month, and it's been just amazing because of participation from our team. So I just want to thank them very much for putting themselves out there to do this, and just great job connecting with everyone. And thanks to everyone on the call for joining too.
Yeah, I just want to say to Karen that like I know Karen's been working on the Women's History Month program and project for a long time, and it shows like there's so much going on that is new and exciting and really worth investing our time in. So I highly encourage you all, again, as I said earlier, check out the series, the HEB Women in Wine series. There's still 2 weeks left in the month, so be sure to check that out. It'll be in our newsletter again tomorrow. Who else?
Awesome.
Well, Denise, you asked, but I feel like I've already, but you asked. So my last tip is I appreciate, of course, I'm a wine lover and I love the wines made by females. And like Denise said, they're great. And so, the fact that they're great wines, I think that's great. But I appreciate the conversation and dialogue about women being in the wine industry also, because I think it's easy to have a wine tasting where you taste wines made by women and you talk about the wine but not necessarily the women as much. And so I appreciate Heather, you bringing up those statistics about the fact that there are just as many women graduating from these enology degrees and programs, but just it's totally skewed in the actual real world in terms of who goes on to become winemakers at prestigious places. And so that kind of stuff, I appreciate spending the time on that. And that is my last sip. I think it's important to look at that full picture and really get the time and attention it deserves. So yay.
I love it. That was great, Joelle. Thank you. That's great. Who else? Tanya, Jim.
Say that my last sip is I'm glad it's cool to drink Merlot again, because I was definitely one of the people that was influenced by the movie, because I don't know much about wine, but I knew I wasn't supposed to drink Merlot anymore and I was supposed to drink Pinot Noir, and I've been drinking that for years, and I'm glad I can go back to Merlot. So thank you very much.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good one. I feel like it hit me at one point, whenever it was, and I was like, oh my gosh, what have I been missing all these years? Seriously, I mean, it really is. You're missing out if you're not drinking Merlot. That was a good movie, but man. Who else? Anyone else have a last sip before we sign off for the evening? Well, I, for one, have thoroughly enjoyed this class. Super excited for all the good vibes about women in this industry. Really excited to keep that vibe going. Really happy to have a lot of newcomers here from our partners at HEB. So we're glad to have you here, and really hope you'll come back again, because our classes are always a lot of fun. We have lots of great new topics coming up in the coming weeks. So check our website, register online. We've got some really fun stuff coming up. And we've got one in-person class coming up, and then we've got an in-person larger event that we're working on for the summer. So stay tuned. We hope to see you all there. Oh, and it is also just coincidentally sponsored by HEB. So hope to see you all there. We love HEB. We love you guys. Thank you for coming tonight, and we'll see y'all soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.